Welcome to another SourceFuse Talking Out Cloud, our Friday leadership chat series. And today we're focusing on the topic of modernization and its relevance to Windows workloads in an AWS environment. For those of you that might be unfamiliar with SourceFuse, we have 16 years deep expertise, commitment to digital innovation, service excellence, and customer success, transforming enterprises through bespoke, secure, and scalable cloud solutions. My name is Liz Grint, Marketing Manager at SourceFuse, and I'm delighted to be joined today by Sriwantha Attanayake, Senior Specialized Solution Architect at AWS, and as I'm sure we're going to find out, a cloud technology evangelist. Welcome, Sri. What I always ask my guests is just to tell us a little bit about your background and experience, especially around Windows workloads and modernization at AWS.
So I have been with AWS close to slightly over 5 years now. So previously I have been a Microsoft software architect and a developer, come from a developer and a application coding background. In fact, I was hired in Singapore. Joined the Microsoft as a Microsoft partner solution architect. And my job is to help partners build amazing Microsoft practices, helping them deploy great Microsoft solutions on AWS. That's one aspect of it. The other aspect is to, of course, help our customers to deploy and build Microsoft applications on AWS. I cover APJ and helping across the partners and customers in that segment.
Well, that's fantastic. Thanks for that. And you're based in Australia, where SourceFuse also has a regional hub. So from your perspective, which industries in Australia are showing the most maturity when it comes to modernization?
That's a really good question. If you look at the industry-wise, it's very difficult to pinpoint a specific industry, but the innovation is happening across the board. To give you some example, we see a huge uptick in fintech companies who are building and migrating Microsoft workloads into AWS. That has a lot to do with the regulatory change in ANZ. For example, with the Open Banking Initiative, there's more ways that you can integrate the banking and financial applications for newcomers in the market. So what we see across the board is these legacy old-guarded systems are now being slowly decommissioned, and the customers are moving towards more API-driven kind of platforms. And part of that journey is, of course, modernizing Microsoft workloads. So you have some kind of huge improvements and modernization wave coming from fintech companies. But also there are some other traditional organizations. Sometimes these are manufacturing companies, and there are some improvements in the ag tech industry, where, for example, they try to improve, get some insights from the rainfall and then come up with some intelligent way to water the plants. So the kind of improvements that you see, or the cloud deployments, are across the industries. But as I said before, at least from my experience, I see a huge uptick in the financial industries and what the kind of things that they are doing on AWS platform.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned fintech there, because we've got quite a few customers from that industry that we've helped modernize, and that's one of our sweet spots. And I'm sure you know, Sri, that at SourceFuse, our approach to modernization is always discovery first, before moving to the next phases, because we can address each unique pain point for each customer, because they're all different. So what advice would you give on how best to approach Windows modernization?
This is a really good question, Liz. If you look at a lot of customers, when they try to approach modernization, there's no any one-size-fit-all approach. You'll find that each unique customers, they have their unique needs. And for those unique needs, there's no way that you can understand it unless you go through a deep down analysis and some kind of a discovery process. And to give you some examples, so let's say you are building an application for a traditional house, and this application is used by internal folks, right? For a couple of users. Sometimes for them, the right approach could be to keep that monolithic application as it is. Whereas if you are building the application for a, let's say, a very innovative customer, or you have 100 applications, and out of those 100 applications, there are a couple of applications that the customer wants to really grow their business around. So for example, initially you may have started this product for about a handful of customers, but when you see that it's started picking some momentum, you need to scale it. So in that case, for such customers, the approach could be, hey, how can I get rid of this monolithic application and then move towards more cloud native applications or more open source technologies? So if it is a SaaS-based customer, like I see a lot of traction around customers moving towards SaaS-based product or refactoring their application into SaaS-based product. And in that case, the challenge would be to how they may have challenges like, hey, what's my tenant cost is going to be? So a solution that works for 10 customers may not work when you try to scale to 100 or thousands of customers. So in that conversation, you need to bring topics like, hey, what's my tenant cost? What's my selling motion is going to look like? So something that took, let's say, 2 or 3 weeks to deploy on a customer environment may not work when you go for a self-service model and you change your business model, selling B2B solutions and then going directly to the customer. You may have to change your deployment models. Where our partners like SourceFuse comes into picture is that they bring their expertise to build those pipelines, to build those automation. The beauty of like actually working with a partner like SourceFuse is you guys bring that industry knowledge, right? So let's say a customer wants to improve their deployment methodology, or they want to SaaSify their application. That may be the first time that they are doing it. But when you engage someone like SourceFuse, the beauty is that you have done it to multiple customers across multiple industries. And along with that, you bring this IP and the knowledge and the know-how. And also you have burned your hands before, right? Because you know exactly where things didn't work, what issues the customer faced. And also that production knowledge, there's a big difference between creating a solution and then testing it or just playing around it as a toy versus doing a production workload, right? So because there are so many parameters that comes into picture that includes things like compliance. How can we be more compliant, or the kind of rules and guidelines you need to follow to make the workload compliant and also cost effective, for example. So all these things comes by doing and deploying production workloads. And SourceFuse, for example, having done this one multiple times across multiple industries, is really useful for our customers because you, along with that, you bring your IP, right? It's not just resources you are bringing. You bring that intellectual property of working with multiple customers into the table, and really helps us to accelerate in the next kind of business models the customers want to build.
Yeah, thanks, Sri. So many elements, so many moving parts. And as you mentioned there, we have our expertise, but we have the AWS Microsoft Workloads competency as well. And so we have helped a lot of customers modernize their workloads to AWS. But perhaps you could tell us a bit more about what is it about the AWS environment that makes it so well suited for Windows workloads?
That's a really good question, Liz. Little known fact about AWS is we are a Microsoft Gold certified partner. So apart from all the competitive news that you may see, Microsoft is a good partner for us. So every time when we are running Microsoft workloads, so it could be Windows licenses or like SQL Server environments on AWS, part of that revenue actually goes to Microsoft as licensing fees, right? So there's apart from the Azure being a competitor, Microsoft is a good partner for us. What a lot of customers don't know is that AWS had a 4-year head start compared to Azure, right? So what it means is that we have years and years of experience deploying Microsoft workloads on AWS. So there's no compression algorithm for experience, as Andy Jassy once said. What these years of experience doing Microsoft workloads gives us is a whole ecosystem around that. So for example, we have built a partner network just to address different customer needs. So most of these customers are very large scale enterprises. You have from banking, from manufacturing, across different industries. So when you come to AWS, what you are experiencing is not just Microsoft workload, but also a whole ecosystem. So you have a matured partner network that can help you in your use cases. You have great marketplace products to integrate your system, because when customers migrate into AWS, it's not just Microsoft workloads they are bringing, right? They need to have the right security products in place. They need to have, maybe they have done the automation for their firewalls using F5 load balancers, right? So they may need to integrate their existing platforms with AWS. So you need to have a really good matured marketplace to deploy. So let's say your security clearance is cleared certain security products, and you need to have those features on AWS to deploy your solution. So when the customers move into AWS, what they're getting is this, the whole ecosystem. And being in this industry for a long time also, we have innovated a lot. Just to give you an idea, in the last couple of years, there's a lot of Microsoft-related features that we have been releasing. For when the customers said, hey, we would like to bring our existing license into AWS, we created a construct called dedicated host. When the customer said, hey, we would like to automate all the deployments, Windows patching, maintenance, we would like to, when the customer say we would like to have some written down automations to automate AWS environments or Windows environments on AWS, we created System Manager. When .NET developers comes to us and then say, hey, we would like to program on .NET Framework, we created the Microsoft .NET SDK, right? So there's a large team inside AWS, including myself, dedicated for Microsoft workloads. And along with that, there are partners like SourceFuse dedicated, or they have the practice and maturity to deploy Microsoft workloads on AWS. For example, if you look at SourceFuse itself, like there are a lot of .NET developers, right? And these developers have experience on building Microsoft applications on AWS. So when the customer comes to AWS, what we bring is that years of experience. So that's one aspect of it. The second aspect is the breadth and depth of services. So if you look at the number of services we have released now, it's over 200 plus services, right? So you may be initially migrating your workload, Windows workload into AWS, but you are not just looking at your current situation. You are looking at what your future state would be look like. So maybe you want to be on a platform with the best-in-class artificial intelligence and machine learning support. You need to be on a platform with the best-in-class security controls. Or you want to be on a platform where the latest and greatest Internet of Things are being done. So when the customer moves, they just not only just think about Microsoft workloads as one aspect, but also they look at, hey, what's my future going to look like? You will see a lot of customers are now moving towards more open source technologies. It could be running their operating systems on Linux to going through big data clusters like Hadoop. Most of them are now looking for open source alternative as instead of looking for commercial guard services. So AWS being this platform of choice for these customers also gives us we tend to know their use cases. A problem that somebody has, let's say, because large companies runs on AWS, right? So these customers may already have gone through certain limitations, and we may have already built services and features to address their use case. So being the cloud leader, what you get is this set of know-how and expertise and the kind of features we have built for these real use cases. So when you come to AWS, what you are getting is we have already solved those problems for other large customers, right? So you get it like a kind of a package offering. So these are the kind of benefits and the reasons why customers move their Microsoft workloads into AWS. And more importantly, having that matured partner network.
That's amazing. And while you were describing that, I was picturing like a Venn diagram where you have your partners like SourceFuse, then there's AWS, and there's Microsoft. And in the middle is where all the magic happens when it all comes together. That's what I was picturing as you were describing it.
The beauty is that if you look at like partners like SourceFuse, right? Because these partners have gone through a strong vetting process. You guys have achieved EC2 Windows Service Delivery Program, for example, right? Part of that going through that program means that we have gone and then audited you. We have checked whether you have right controls in place. So it's kind of a second assurance for the customer to trust these partners, right? So instead of like, for example, especially like if it is a new engagement, right? If you haven't worked with these partners, you need some level of assurance, hey, how good they are on what they claim to be that they are good at, right? AWS took that initiative to vet them, certify them, and also the partner went through a rigorous audit process to qualify for those designations. So it's a DevOps competency, or it could be EC2 Service Delivery Program. And that's not something easy, right? It takes years to build. So the good thing about like going through like the partners like SourceFuse is that you get that assurance as part of the engagement.
Yeah, so actually talking of assurance and trust, we hear that a lot of people are worried about maintaining compliance on the cloud or their compliances, and therefore they actually prefer to remain on-prem. And we've seen that, especially in the financial services. So how does AWS address that concern and build confidence around industry-specific compliance?
This is a really good question, Liz. Sometimes back, I would say when I first joined AWS, so I have been with AWS for about 5 years now, right? This was a concern, right? Sometimes I do see customers asking this question, especially in certain markets like ASEAN markets. Hey, we are running on premises. We have these security controls. Do you have that? Interestingly, I think about 3-4 years ago, now the question is, the thing that they say, especially the kind of statements that you are getting from CTOs and CIOs, is that they say that it's difficult to be compliant and secure, more secure if you are not in cloud. Just to give you an idea around this. So think of a denial of service attack, right? Where a lot of outside bots or malicious attackers send in like a large amount of traffic to your network. Now, if you are running an on-premises environment, to control such an attack is a very hard task for a couple of reasons. Number one is you don't have the insights into this, like where it is coming from. You may not have the right technology in place, like all the artificial intelligence, filtering mechanisms that you need to have to do guard against these attacks. The good thing about being on a platform like AWS is that you get that scale, especially like think of the denial of service kind of an attack, right? AWS has that like a global idea around how these network attacks happens. And our insights and the tooling available to guard against them is more matured than what you can have on an on-premises environment. So that's number one. Number two is around the controls and the products available. So if you are running an on-premises environment, right, most of these security appliances have certain limitations. So it could be in terms of how you can scale them. So if, for example, let's say you have a firewall rule, some kind of a filtering mechanism. They may not scale when you grow your business, but when you are on the cloud, you have the ability to infinitely scale your environment to address your use cases. The other thing is, a very funny thing happens recently. I was having a conversation with a customer. They were saying that, hey, we have these SLAs in our organization, right? What's the AWS SLAs? When I dig deep into their use case, what I realize is some of the things that they think that they are secure, they think that they are compliant. What we realized was that they don't have right monitoring in place to even measure them. So they think that they are secure. They think that they have certain level of service level agreements with their business users. But when you dig deep, you realize there are a lot of issues how they monitor their compliance. And being on cloud, what you get is a lot of products and services and features that you can actually monitor your compliance. So a lot of our customers, like especially those who are coming from on-premises, faces these issues. As I said before, like they think they are compliant, but when you dig deep, you realize that they are really not, because there are some issues in the way they monitor and in their workflow issues. A good example could be how you onboard an employee, right? So when you onboard an employee, I see across the board, sometimes they don't have the right controls on premises to monitor how their credentials are being used. But when you're on cloud, if you have implemented your environment right, the good thing is that you can properly monitor the life cycle of the credentials, how they are being used, where they are being used. And important thing to note here is AWS itself is more compliant and secure, but we follow a shared responsibility model, right? What it means is that AWS provide all the security controls and it's secure. You get all the certifications, you get the HIPAA compliance, you get the PCI DSS compliance, all these certifications, you get the right controls, but there are certain level of responsibility that you need to have, right? For example, nothing prevents you using a weak password, right? So there's a certain level of control, whether you are on premises or on AWS, that you need to have to make sure that you are secure when you are on the cloud. Going back into the importance of having the right controls in place, that's why sometimes it's important to have some expertise from a partner like SourceFuse to guide the customer around how to be secure when you are on cloud. Because there may be some lot of security features and products, but the customer may not be across how to use them, right? Or have the right workflows and processes internally to control it. And the good thing about, like, for example, working with SourceFuse, like you guys have done it multiple times, you follow a very consultative approach, right? And what you do is not only just implement these controls on AWS, but also guiding the customers' internal processes and workflows to work with those controls. Hopefully I answered your question, Liz. It's a long answer.
Yes, you did. Thank you so much. I really got the message about the joint accountability, and data security is sort of #1 priority for us as well. And for the customer, about being able to approve their accountability as well. So I'm really excited to share that recently SourceFuse were announced 2021 winners of the AWS Windows Modernization Championship. So lastly, Sri, I know you talked about some of the benefits of working with Advanced Consulting Partners, but how else do customers benefit from this partnership between SourceFuse and AWS?
A lot of benefits the customer would get working with a matured partner like SourceFuse. I would like to shed some light around some internal things that usually the customers may not know. For example, SourceFuse being an advanced consultancy partner and also having close relationship with AWS, one of the benefits the customer get is that the SourceFuse can leverage those relationships internally to get the technical expertise as and when needed. For example, SourceFuse has dedicated solution architect and partner managers in AWS. So when SourceFuse wants, let's say, there's an issue in a service, or they need certain feature upgrade or a product feature that's specific for customer needs, they have strong, like a very clear pathways to escalate that and to bring that need of the customer into the table of AWS folks, right? So there are a lot of solution architects internally working with SourceFuse. These are AWS solution architects, right? So one of the advantages is that you can actually have that shared knowledge sharing, and that close relationship helps the customers to answer very tough questions sometimes. That's one aspect. The second one, as I already mentioned, that we have vetted you guys and you have done like amazing project for multiple customers. It could be like Redgate, or recently another customer I won't mention is a large deal that's happening. The good thing about this is that you have done it multiple times. There's nothing comparable for an actual work experience, right? So that relationship, that the trust we have built with the partner and the trust the customers have built is something that other customers can actually leverage when you are engaged in SourceFuse, right? The third thing is being an advanced consultancy partner and also going through that competency program. SourceFuse has access to AWS funding programs, right? So one of the way the customer can benefit working with SourceFuse is you can navigate different funding programs available to you as a customer, as long as you engage a matured partner like SourceFuse. So that helps us, for example, to create a POC. Let's say you are trying out a new product, you are still in the process of getting your budget approved. Talk to SourceFuse. They may be able to like figure it out a method to how to create this POC and come up with an answer, right? The most important thing, I guess, is what I really like about SourceFuse. That's the relationship is the way that they do the discovery workshops and assessment, right? I have seen it multiple times where the customer sometimes don't know what they want. And you guys have gone through that process to understand the use cases, break it down into small consumable chunks, and then put these project plans in place to, and also align them with AWS internal programs to get the best outcome for the customer. Because there are so many internal programs available for the customer. It could be SaaS accelerator programs, Windows modernization programs, or database modernization programs. And SourceFuse having that internal knowledge about AWS helps you as a customer to really like navigate that landscape.
Yeah. So it's a bit like you said there, the customers might not know what they want, but they might not know what they could have as well.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah. Oh, Sri, thank you so much for joining me today.
Pleasure to have you, Liz. This meeting.
Thank you. And thanks as well to our audience for watching. Join us again soon when we'll be back with another Talking Out Cloud with SourceFuse.